Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love and light. And now, we invite you to enjoy the show.
I'm, preparing to leave this whole life that I've had here in Montana, and I'm moving to Washington. And when I first went to Barbara Good for the hypnotherapy, she's an acupuncturist here in town, and she has Dragon Well acupuncture. Anyway, she does this hypnotherapy, and I just love it. And I said to her, I wanted to be sure to not have any blocks in the way when I move. I'm open. I don't have any idea. Why are you moving? I'm asked. Because I can. And not because I have to, not because I don't love Great Falls. I do. But there's an opportunity and I'm taking it. And so I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't want anything in this transition that I will sabotage or block in some way to inhibit the whatever is coming. Whatever the adventure is.
Yeah.
So we had this about 3 weeks ago. We had this hypnotherapy session. In fact, I've had kind of a trifecta of things that have contributed to what I came out of that hypnotherapy session with. So I had the hypnotherapy. I had a biofeedback, which I'm learning about from another gal. I'm not trying to implement it. Because I don't know where I don't know. I know this much about it, which is zip. And I had done a training in a Reiki 1 and 2 for a gal, and I had her give me a Reiki session, and it was on. It was great. Anyway, and so then today was to be my second hypnotherapy, and I'll have another. But in that first hypnotherapy session, I saw myself as a garden inside. Yeah. And this garden was all dried up. It was just, the ground was crusty. It wasn't even producing weeds. And I was looking at that and I thought, what the heck? Anyway, as it all came out, and it's basically been me. I've given and given and given, and there's no more. But I have this incredible amount of energy. And so I just push, which according to acupuncture, that is the yang side. And my background is Aries. I have a strong male sign. Yeah. And so I can move and keep going and not even be aware there's nothing more. And so that whole thing for the last 3 weeks, and with this hypnotherapy, the Reiki and the biofeedback have all fed into this garden, and I keep checking on it, dry as a bone. So I hold down the middle of it, got some water going in it, because the top was so crusty, the water couldn't get through. It was just bad. And keep working on that image. And then I have an affirmation I've been working with. And it's about, I am proud of my ability to develop and grow. I'm proud of my ability it was a rhyme, to say no. I'm proud of my ability to let go. And I'm proud of my ability to go slow. And I've been practicing that and practicing it. In fact, when I first started practicing it, she changed the word because she said, "Oh, I see on your face that the word proud is not a good one for you." Yeah. And with my background and the very conservative, controlling understanding that I've been given in my culture is, you don't say that. You don't tell yourself you're proud of yourself. That's conceited. So she changed the word to appreciation. So I worked with appreciation for almost 2 weeks, not quite. And then I switched to that word. And I told her today, I said, for 3 days, that was so hard to write every day because I write it, and then I repeat it and I repeat it. Oh man, that was tough to say. I am proud of. Now I'm okay with it.
Why was it tough, do you think?
Because of my culturally created self.
Okay.
Those are the messages from childhood and religious background, very strong, huge Irish family.
Mm-hmm.
The sisters, God love them.
Yeah.
I just have a lot of messages there that some are right, some are wrong, some are moral, some are not,
Yeah.
Who knows whether, and until I bump into them, I don't know they're part of my worldview, right?
Right. Yep.
But she saw that right off the get-go and switched. And so then that gave me permission to come to it when I was ready. And so like I said, I've been doing this garden thing, and then I had this biofeedback. And in that thing, I saw the garden again, and I looked at it, and I thought, I wonder if maybe it needs some chicken coop poop.
Fertilizer.
It needed some kind of composting because the ground isn't healthy. So I thought, okay, how do you do that? And I was thinking on that, and all of a sudden, very gently, but very clearly, one after the other, negative memories, negative feelings, negative thoughts, negative people came flowing in. And as they flew in, I thought, what's that got to do with anything? And then I realized that's my chicken coop poop. With all that
fertilizer, yeah.
All of it. So I began pulling one after the other out, and I worked up that garden really good, and I put that poop all over in that garden because the earth regenerates and makes what was not healthy and good something beautiful and lush. And it's all from crap.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're supposed to use,
And that's what I did and then I get done with it. And because I am this, let's get her done kind of person, okay, now should I be putting some more soil in here? And I was just told, wait,
yeah,
give it some time.
Yeah, it's good to go slow.
Yeah, I am proud of the ability that I can go slow. Okay, so I did this whole thing, and it's still incubating in there. So today I have it came up in another session that I collaborated with a couple of other women, Barbara being one, for someone else. And Barbara did an explanation in there about the yin and the yang. Mm-hmm. And the yang is what I operate so strong from because of this, let's get her done. We're on fire. Let's go. Daylight's burning. And what I needed to be in touch with, I listened to her when she talked to this other person about this beautiful feminine side to us that belongs to the dark and is part of the night, if you want, the night sky with the stars and the moon, and that kind of dark, safe and nurturing and quiet. And I consider it uterine because it's within the uterus where life is formed and generated and has potential. Okay. So I listened to her, and I brought that up today. So she took me there. And so I'm walking around inside now with a whole different look to this garden. But what was so beautiful in it, because I've always been scared of the dark. I didn't talk about that today, but I wasn't scared in this. There's a couple other funny little things that happen, but in that she had me create a safe space in this garden that I can go to and go back to, and I can spend time with it to not only look at the garden, but to be in the dark. And I created, I just watched it create this grotto kind of effect with this beautiful stone seat and I could lay on it, I could sit on it, I could do whatever I wanted, but it was like a cave around me. So I felt really safe and protected in the night looking at this garden. And then I saw this grass form at the base of the grotto, and then over to one side, this pot. I have one like this, a big pot, and in it I have those tall grasses, those cool grasses.
Uh-huh.
And it looks beautiful in a pot. If you never tried it, try it. Anyway, and at the base of it, around that pot, were all the spring flowers.
Oh,
There was iris, and there was narcissus and daffodil and hyacinth all around that pot, and it's sitting in the middle. And there's this riot of color around it. It was just beautiful. Just beautiful. So I'm sitting there, and she's taking me down further and further and further, and I'm going in there. Yeah. And all I could see was the richness and the beauty of this dark. And it reminded me of being a child laying on the grass at night, looking at the stars and feeling really safe. And especially when you lay on the grass, like in August, and, it's maybe been watered sometime during the day, and it's cool, but it's got the warmth of the day still in the soil.
mm-hmm.
And you can feel that as a kid, and you pay attention to that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling I had was that soil that's warm underneath, but it's cool on top.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt really safe. Well, I have this spirit guide, my guardian angel. His name's Tony, and he looks like a leprechaun. So go figure. They just show up. Anyway, he's been with me all my life, and he's kind of little, but he's a feisty character. He doesn't listen to me at all, and he just takes me wherever I'm supposed to go, and he's all business, and he doesn't have any time, no patience, none with my questions or wait for me. It's just, you can keep up, just keep going. And he's kind of a nervous Nelly, but I understand that part of his role with me is to learn from me too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a surprise. Although, as I've read about some of those consciousnesses that William Rand has written about in his manuals, that it makes some sense.
Yeah, like the ones that have ascended, but they're not ready to go fully, but so they're here to help. Yeah.
They're here to help.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing, and I guess I'm helping too. So that's good, but he doesn't listen to me. I can tell you that. He's in charge. He just keeps going. Like I was going on this walk, and I said, I need help with this because I'm new at this. And he's way ahead of me. I mean, we're talking about almost a block, and it's scary for me. It's scary in the big world. And he's going like crazy, and I'm saying, wait up. And he's just keeps going. He didn't care. He just goes. So I got to keep up. And then what was cool in this dark garden thing today was there was a black cat that crossed across my nicely spaded, perfect looking garden.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did it on purpose, right through the middle. It's a cat. And he's looking at me, and his eyes are just glowing because he can see in the dark so good. And that's kind of cool about cats. But as you know, and as Janelle has instructed me, I'm to be making friends with these animal creatures. Mm-hmm. And so here he shows up, and I'm thinking, you know, I don't do cats. The cat knows this. And the cat just looks at me like, so big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm walking across your beautiful garden. And I'm looking at this cat and kind of talking to it and thinking, it really is beautiful. It's pure black, that cat. And yet I could see that in that dark.
Mm-hmm.
The moon was so huge, shining on this garden. And this black cat walks across, and he stops, and he's sitting there looking at me like he's important. So I named him Midnight. And I thought, oh, he's going to be back. And I realized, I said, are you a guide? Are you somebody important I need to know? Mm-hmm. And it was basically silence until all of a sudden I heard in a really kind of a deep sound, like a cat that would meow, meow,
Oh,
that kind of was,
growling.
well, yeah, kind of, but with a deep voice.
Mhm.
And it was basically like, it was the understanding that this is the connection I have between that world and this world. He was a connector.
That world meaning what do you mean by that
Beyond
world?
the veil. I call it
Oh,
beyond the veil.
okay.
Some people call it heaven. Some people call it paradise. Some people call it consciousness. I
So
don't know. I
you're
just
saying that
call
the
it
cat was
the connector.
the connector between this 3D world and the beyond the veil? Oh, okay. So your garden is kind of the place where you'll transition. Is that what that is?
It must be. It
Okay.
must be. And I'm so excited.
Yeah.
It hasn't grown anything yet, other than this down on the corner, all by itself, is this little thing created today for me to go and just be. It's cool. So
Awesome.
that's the upshot. Of course, I'm going to be having another one, but I
Hmm.
was given some new affirmations today to do. Where are they? Oh, sure. When you want them. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, here they are. Um, so my affirmations will be: I am at ease with new beginnings. I am relaxed about the future. I am learning acceptance for what is. And then the things that I got in the session for myself were that I need to walk and I need to go to the garden to visit with my body, because my body has some issues. And that was what we talked about today. She uh, I have this thing going on in my glutes and down the back of my leg, and then there's an area there where it comes up through the groin, and it's all on the feminine side.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, so the hypnotherapist on this other end I'm looking at right now says, "Oh,
I say because I just signed up for a class on feminine and well, it's really like both of the energies, but I mean we talked about this before where it's funny how whatever you're working on, all the people you interact with, they're working on the same thing.
I
You know,
know,
it's just a present when they say, "Oh, I'm working on this thing," and you recognize, "Oh, I'm working on the same thing too,"
yeah,
because not everybody knows what they're working on per se, but
yeah,
just really, I don't know. I find it honestly, I find it almost as exciting as I did when I first understood what astrology was, because the way I would have said it to my Christian friends, which is the majority of them, right? I'm in the United States.
mhm.
Um, was I like my best friend? I wanted to call her and say, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool! You have to understand what astrology is." And da da da. I wanted to say this is math and science that says this is God right here. It's like in black and white. It's right here. Everybody has a unique footprint. It can be seen. All this stuff, and it didn't go in for her. I didn't tell her for a long, long time. But then when I started to try and tell her, she was like, "Nope, I can't do that."
Ah, leave that one alone."
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it is, I mean, that was the one thing. And actually I got another astrology reading from someone recently, and he's really good at it. And
Is that the fellow that you interviewed?
no, I have not interviewed him.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I just saw this guy. I looked up something I wanted to learn out, or I don't really remember how, but anyways, I was watching a video that he was talking about something, and it wasn't like the superficial first level astrology stuff. It was something that was a little bit deeper. And he had a really good grasp of it. And I liked it enough that I went and checked his website. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a reading from him. And so we did it on life purpose. And um the whole reason I said all that was because in the session, he actually said that, yes, I'm gonna have an inkling towards astrology, but it's actually the purpose of it is to essentially get that enlightenment in a sense, like to further my progression on my spiritual path, which is absolutely 100% what I did.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it.
It's really fun. I mean, like you can find that anywhere, right? You can find whatever you need for your spiritual growth in any avenue, but that just happened to be what was mine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I just, yeah, this was a pretty awesome session because it's the first time I've done hypnotherapy where I have follow-up. I usually just go
Oh,
once
yeah. Uh-huh.
and whatever needs to be done is done.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, the one of the most profound ones I already talked about another time with you was when I had the diagnosis of cancer.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I went in and I found it and I brought it home
Mhm.
and buried it in the garden.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, it was a powerful thing for me and ritualistic, which I love ritual
Yeah.
because it's natural to humans to do ritual.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just what we do.
Yeah.
And that was a way to bring closure to that energetic piece and then just go through the process of the surgeries and healing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
people
that's a really
oh,
good description of what the whole story sounded like. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people understand what that is. Like I can't say that everybody has experienced that, but people who do work with energy, whether they're aware of it or not, I think they know when something, I'll describe it this way, but basically something is stressing them out and causing, um, it's not irritation, but an agitation of the energy,
mhm.
and they work with it however they do, whatever it is that they do, and then they get resolution, and then they just know it's over. It's done. I solved it. I worked through what I needed to work through, and it's over. And I don't have to worry about it. And it's, to me, I think the easiest way to describe it is if you're going through a really hard breakup with somebody and you're in turmoil for
Yes.
a while, right? This is the getting
Oh,
over or recovering part.
authentic.
Yep. And pretty much everybody deals with that, right? At some point. So they do the work, whatever it is they have to do. And then when they come to peace, that's when you've done the work to let that go. So it's similar in that way. Yeah. That's the energetic work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I could tell this isn't finished, you know.
Yeah.
The thing she, you know, a lot of this is the psychology piece, and it's, you know, what shape does it have? What color does it have?
Uh-huh.
Does it have a smell? Where is it located? All that kind of stuff. And today, she asked me, what it looked like. First of all, where was it located? Which was the glutes and down the back of the left leg. And what does it look like if I stand in front of it, if I stand behind it. And if I stand in front of it, it looks like a 7. But if I stand behind it, it looks like a handle on some things because
Uh-huh.
it's shape. And it's what is it made of? And it was metal. Well, she's an acupuncturist.
Uh-huh.
So the wood, the fire, the water, the metal, the earth, she gets it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I didn't know. I had no clue. That's what it looked like. And
Mhm.
she had me look at it for a long time. And I did. And she said, has it changed at all? I said, well, it's gone from black, like you have for wrought iron, to kind of a gray color. I suppose more platinum shade. Anyway, I said it's done that, but I said it hasn't softened. But then she had me get in touch with a feeling of a time when I'd been totally accepted. And I don't have very many of those,
Mhm.
but I had a memory of a person who does that for me. And I brought that there and I looked. It always seems so funny to talk about it, but I looked at it. And it wasn't that the iron got any softer, but it didn't feel like it was so unyielding to me.
Okay.
But I knew at any moment it could, you know, be just iron. And what was its temperature? It was cold. It was definitely cold. And as I looked at it, it wasn't so much that it warmed, but it wasn't so cold to the touch. I don't know how to say it,
Yeah.
but it's all
Not,
in.
it's not as intense. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. As we know, iron can be. I mean, it can be really cold. And 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 when we got all finished with the session, I said, well, I because she had talked to me about water and wood. Oh, was there another part of my body that could help that? And I said, or what's another part of your body that's really, really strong and could yield some of its strength to help that that issue in the glutes and the back of the leg. And I said, oh, my shoulders, because my shoulders are always like concrete. They're the strongest thing on me. And from the upper part across the back and around, they are. But it's wearing on my shoulders, on my attachment to the arms. So she touched me on the front here someplace where the attachment is. And she said, is it here? Or she pointed in the middle, and then she came to the back. And the front is it the large intestine? The middle was...
These are meridians?
These are meridians where this was the lung intestine. And this was another one. And then this one back here was the small intestine. Anyway, this one in the front, the lung intestine, is the one that's the most sensitive. And that's on both sides. I mean, I'm wearing them out because I've used my shoulders so much in my life. And
I mean, your lungs and your intestines? I don't understand the lung intestine.
I don't either. They're going to, because the lungs are the water. The shoulders are wood. I mean, these are things I don't know. I'm going to learn. They're the wood. And then I have the iron in the glutes and the back of the leg. So there's I forget what the word was she used. One perpetuates the other, like water to fire, fire to earth, earth to metal. And it sounds like metal's the strongest. So you have these elements in the body, elements that relate to the body, and these elements can help each other. Mm-hmm. The iron or the metal being the strongest. And so when we got all finished, I mean, I don't know anything about these things yet. I'm getting there. Maybe. But I said, I'm kind of thinking that the clue to the whole thing for me isn't that metal is in the glutes and down the back of my leg, so much as it is a key to what it is I need to heal. Mm-hmm. And it's using the metal somehow, the metal element. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Does it? Okay.
See, energetically it does, because we essentially, when we do this work, we're kind of, our process is kind of like all over the board. It's not well, the way I would describe it is, it's not the way that our Western education system sets things up, which is, you can only find the answers for your question in this box, right? Whereas if you do energy work, it's like, oh, it's here. Oh, but that's connected to this part over here, and that's connected to this part over here, which is entirely out of the box, right?
Totally. I mean, who would
very connected?
Yeah, they are.
They are. That does make sense.
Yeah. But so I'll learn more about these elements in the body, but along with that will be something to do with these meridians, and I don't do that work. I do reflexology. Those are really easy. 5 zones.
I still think you're affecting meridians. I mean, I don't know if they teach that to you, but I would imagine that you're still affecting meridians.
Oh, you affect them, but thinking them is nice and straightforward.
Okay. In the foot, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're just nice straight lines. I don't have to go through any organs because they already do,
Right.
And it does affect the body, sure.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. It's always have new healing.
And to know that some of this will be cleansed before I leave. I mean, some of it will take years, and I know that. But it's nice to know what it is. It brings it to the consciousness, and when we're aware, we can set intentions and work in that direction for the highest good that can happen there.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
who knows what this brings, huh?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think it'll wind up. Which, I mean, I think you were kind of already on that path in terms of opening up to what are the possibilities going forward anyhow, right? So you kind of already set that stage. And I found it interesting as you were talking, the first thing you said, well, this is my intention. Well, that's huge, right? That's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be open, you're gonna be receptive, you're gonna be open to the flow. Um, yeah. So it's really beautiful to watch people do that work, I think. And what I think is the most fun is to watch people do the work and then have the realization, oh, this thing, look at that, it actually worked. And now I am open to this. And
Mhm.
it's I don't think it's actually stuff that people usually share because it's so personal. And if they share it, then they have to be honest with themselves, right? And
Yes.
the other person they share it with, which is usually pretty hard. So yeah, but it's really precious. And I don't even get to share that with as many people as I would like because I do this work all the time and, have
Yeah.
these realizations. And it's like, if I say that to somebody, they're going to think I'm crazy. Most people, the ones that aren't involved in this stuff. I
Yeah.
actually,
No matter what, it sounds like, maybe I might, especially at my age, maybe we ought to be getting you a room.
I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah. But I could see why in generations past that they would have absolutely thought that. I mean, I can even remember being in Northwest Florida. I really felt like I felt that genuinely like I came in with a different mindset because I wasn't from there. Um, I married somebody from that area. And so, for the most part, at least on the superficial level, everybody was really accepting. And then when I went in there and they hired me to do a job and do the job and I'd come with my own conditioning, right? Like from a different place that doesn't have their mindset. I'm like, well, this needs to happen. But what? No, girls don't do that. Like, and I'm,
Oh,
what? Girls don't do that. And so I had to deal with my own issues around why would you say a girl couldn't do something? Um, and I mean, what I remember at the time, I wasn't really aware of this energy stuff, but at the time, all I could think was, I'm so glad I wasn't born a second earlier because I couldn't have tolerated this, the way things are in society. But yeah, no, it's interesting how these things really actually come to fruition and how people wind up dealing with them as they go through the process.
yeah. And, just piggybacking off what you just said about the uh, cultural expectations in different parts of our country, different parts of the world, among people of our own gender or people of another gender.
Mhm.
There's all manner of exceptions that are made, and and it can be really hard. I honestly believe that was the basis of the depressions that I suffered in my marriage, in the
Mhm.
early years of my marriage.
Meaning it
And
was because of cultural expectations.
yes, and I
Mm.
married into them too. I mean, they matched my own.
Hmm.
It,
But they
it,
didn't
what,
fit you.
what I didn't realize is it didn't match me.
Yeah.
Me, I didn't fit. I
Yeah.
didn't fit in even in when I was growing up, I didn't fit because of I didn't know I thought different.
Yeah.
And so no wonder it was confusing, confusing at times because I didn't get it. I was a kid and then a young woman, and this is what you're supposed to do. And I was trained to do it. And I mean, I was trained. I was educated into this is how you are as a woman. This is how you are as a wife. This is how you are as a mother. And if you go to work, if you do, then these are the things that have priority. And this is why. I mean, there were
Hmm.
rules. And it wasn't so much that I even knew to question the rules. And that was probably part of the depression that was created for me because I didn't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Had people say, well, why couldn't you have done whatever with my Catholicism? Because it didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
it wasn't a
Yeah.
part of the wheelhouse.
Hmm.
It didn't question. You just accepted that. And I was, in my mind, the misfit. And it wasn't because I didn't agree with or didn't love or appreciate what I had in my life. But I remember one time, I don't know how many years I'd been married, but many, probably about 10. And I thought, this is all there is. This is it. And it wasn't. And then I thought, but I love my kids. I love my husband. I love my life. What's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? Well, I wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
And that had nothing to do with love because I loved my husband. I loved my kids. That had to do with,
Well, it had to do with loving yourself to recognize that that wasn't you. Yeah.
yeah, and that wouldn't come for many more years,
Yeah.
you know. But through counseling, I was able to get through that kind of depression. And I call it depression because I don't know what else to call it. It wasn't grief, it wasn't sorrow, but
Was
it was,
alignment for sure. You could say that for
yeah.
certain. Did they diagnose you with depression?
No, I was never, at least I was never told that. And I sought counseling and I went through different tests
Uh-huh.
for it. I was told at one point, I think it was that I was more borderline in my thinking, uh,
Okay.
black and white. That also was training.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
taken me a long time to get to a place where I am open to what is it, God, that you want from me? But I had somebody say to me one day, "You argue with God?"
You mean
And
you have a conversation?
he's the most wonderful um, of all beings and creatures there can be. I'm speaking of Jesus.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's argument, it's discussion.
Yeah.
And we have questions. And so I ask them and I get help. Sometimes I'm told it's none of my business.
You know, as you talk about that, it makes me think about the youth of today. So if we just, have our regular framework on in our minds and we say, look at the levels of depression in humans today, especially the youth. Okay. Now we could say, oh, well, that's because, well, I think feel the same thing about ADHD and ADD. Now we have a name for this situation that maybe in years past they didn't have, and now they're starting to recognize that there's more people who have these conditions that maybe they didn't even ask those questions before. But I don't even think that really matters. I think, that's the nice side of it. Then you could go all the way to the negative side and say, well, it's drug companies are trying to just push pills, which that's not completely incorrect, but I don't think that's the driving force. I kind of wonder if these young people who are experiencing huge levels of depression that their parents maybe didn't experience is because they really are in misalignment with who they are, not with society. And because they've gone through the conditioning, like you said, as a young person, that they they feel the misalignment, but they don't know where to go because they don't have the resources, like you said, I don't know what to question about Catholicism to make it better, right? Maybe they don't know what to question to figure out how to get themselves in alignment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alignment's a nice word. I mean, a good word for issues because that's what we are. I mean, we can call it dis-ease or
Right.
whatever, but alignment
Yeah.
is is huge because it doesn't mean that we're so far off we can't find our path. or or we don't understand that that path is right under us. You know, when you drive in the country, I don't know how much country living you've ever done,
Oh, a
but
lot.
when you, okay, so
Yes.
when you drive on a dirt road in the country and it's been raining, and especially if you end up with gumbo,
Mhm.
you stay in the ruts. It's scary as all get out because they're deep and they're ugly, and you're going to scrape on the bottom of your pickup, but you drive those ruts because the road is under there. If
Mhm.
you try to create a new road, you're going to go zinging off the edge. You just yeah, or end up sideways and blocking it for anybody else that would like to go through, and you thinks you're just an idiot because you didn't know how to drive.
Yeah.
It's just a fact, and so this misalignment is really sometimes just finding out where the road is underneath.
Yeah. Oh, I like that description. I want to say one other thing. So I must have had this dream last night to share today. I already got somebody to interpret it because I'm in that interpretation class. But
Yeah.
okay, so I had this dream, and it was like I arrived and there was already a celebration going on, and there were children there. It's almost like it wasn't Christmas, but it was almost like it was Christmas. There was a big day of celebration. People were opening. There were a lot of toys everywhere. Okay. And later in the dream, I'm not going to say all the dream because it was too much, but later in the dream, I said, I was looking at this toy stuffed animal, and I was actually trying to figure out what it was. Like I didn't know what kind of animal is this thing? It kind of looked like a dinosaur thing with a tail. I don't know. Anyways, I was just like rotating this animal and just really inspecting it. And of course, everything you have in your dream that you really pay attention to, you want to know what that actually means. So, for some reason, we had gone into a closet or a room that was like a closet. And so I was talking to who I think was supposed to be representing my husband. And after I inspected it, I hung up the animal on their tail from the curtain, the clothes rod, where you hang the clothes. And of course, Holly was interpreting my dream. And she read the first two paragraphs, and that's where the stuffed animal came in. And she said, well, first off, I'll tell you that it's obviously about my birth because it's about celebration. Okay. But the bad thing about it is that the celebration should occur when you arrive. It should not already be occurring. And there should not be no celebration, because when everybody arrives, they want to be welcomed, right? Like that's
Sure. That's why.
Yeah, you can't get away from that. That's really what everybody needs, right? Okay. So this tells you that I have issues with my birth that I still need um to
Yeah.
deal with. And then the later in the dream, it tells me what it's affecting. Okay. But what I found really funny about it was, looking at this stuffed animal, she says to me, did they know what gender you were going to be when you were born? And I said, no, because this was 1977, right? No, they didn't know. And matter of fact, they thought I was going to be a boy because I was so squirmy in the womb and
Oh,
active, I guess, very different from my older sister. And so the whole conversation ensues. And so we kind of go through this whole thing. And it's like, okay, here I am. I'm 46, going on 47. I'm having a dream about my birth because I'm not dealing. Okay, so we go in to have the conversation. What was it like kind of growing up? And of course, it triggers memories of what I recall. Well, yes, they thought I was going to be a boy. My mother did not want a boy because she didn't want to have a boy at all. She was very pleased at having three girls, um, but again, that sets up this weird dichotomy. Like we're inspecting you because you're not the right, like you're not feminine enough, or you're not. I mean, this is as an infant. How can you not be feminine or masculine enough as an infant? You just are, right? But it's true. And that probably is exactly what happened. I don't know that they like picked me up and were like checking out on my parts to make sure, like, are you really a girl? Is this really what it is? But there must have been something there. And how could I got that. And that's in a dream. So that's definitely in my subconscious. It's not something that I'm consciously aware of. I'd certainly have, I mean, I remember the stories. And actually, somebody said to me my first name the other day. I can't remember. I think my husband said something. Oh, my daughter said something about my name. And she looked at me like, that's not a name that can be used for either gender. And I was like, yes, Blair is a name that can be used for either gender. Of course, my daughter's, who's the language person, says, well, not with an E. And I said, well, no, not with an E for people who are aware of the history of language. But, I think my husband also asked me something about my first name. And I said, well, we started calling me by my second name because my father thought that the first name was too feminine.
well, there you go.
Yeah. So, but I mean, things like that kind of come up, and you don't even know that you've got those. What you're talking about is that programming that we get when we're young. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what William Rand calls the culturally created self.
Mhm.
And he talks about it, in relation to the dormant issues that we don't know about, this,
Right.
the dark secret, and before we ever really get going on this earth, all those pieces that go into making us who we are, and just the thoughts that our moms had, or the voices or music or whatever is being played while we're in utero, affects us.
Yes, yes.
Nobody knew that. I didn't know that having
I didn't
kids.
know it either. And now as I'm learning, I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done to my kids? Like, like when I look at their charts and like, oh, but it's too much.
I
So
know.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll just help them when I'm there.
I know one time Jerry was saying something, this when he was a little kid, my oldest one, and he was saying something about one of the kids and how, that you like them better or whatever, how a little kid will do.
Uh,
And I just said, well, I'm sorry, but take it up with God. He made you first. So what does that do to a kid?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, another thing too, I'll just share this. This is one of the things that they teach in this dream interpretation course. Um, some people have the gift of projection, which is you think thoughts and essentially it go on an energetic level, it goes over to this other person. So, I don't think you weren't in my first Reiki class, but I know that we talked about this in our first Reiki class. The experience where you're in a huge crowd. I mean, the first one I remember is like being at the gym in high school when we have a pep rally. Okay. And you might say to your friend, hey, look at that person over there. They have glasses and they're wearing a green shirt or whatever, or they may describe their hair or something. And so you and your friend then look at that person. And, like 3 seconds later, they start looking at you, like out of the whole crowd.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can read mind.
Yeah. So, and they know it because, everybody's been there. Like I'm in a crowd and somebody's looking at me. I don't know what's going on, but somebody's looking at me. So, we kind of talked about that as being similar to Reiki and that you can send that energy there. So it's similar in that sense. But the course that I'm taking says that, especially if you have this gift of projection, especially if it's in your dreams, you want to be very careful about what you're thinking because what you think then goes to other people. So that means you need to be responsible for your thoughts even more than people who are not necessarily gifted that way. So we're talking about a gift to be able to do this and do it with effectiveness, I guess. And
with conscious choice.
Yeah. And so actually the way he says it is if you essentially before now, it's kind of like the way that I was introduced to the Mormon belief system. It was like, well, if you are unaware of essentially what they believe, then you're not going to damnation. But if you become aware and you choose not to do that, then you're going there. So in a sense, which of course that's based in fear, right? But in a sense, it's similar to what they suggest with this is that if you're aware that your thoughts have effects on other people, then you have a responsibility to make sure that you manage your thoughts, right?
To me, that's just a moral issue.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But the thing
that's about the whole society.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The thing that I found that's interesting about it is even though I have been aware, I mean, yes, I do hypnosis. I mean, kind of that's like a prerequisite for being able to do hypnosis is to have that projection. But I didn't think about it as like, I don't know. I didn't think about it as I honestly didn't think about it. I just thought, okay, they're telling me I can do this. I'm doing it. It's working. I don't have any problem with it. But another thing he articulated was that's what healers do essentially is healers create an environment like this person just did for you today where you feel safe. And when you feel safe, then you can go through what you need to go through. And when you process those emotions or whatever you need to process, not only does it let that energy flow, but it allows your body, your physical body to actually go back to essential homeostasis because the natural state, right, is healthy.
Yes.
So let's say that you have experienced a long time with dis-ease around a particular thing, okay? And you go to a healer and they create a space around the thing, the emotion or the situation that is affecting this dis-ease. And so you have a container of safe space. What happens is your body kind of, and your mind and your energy kind of remembers, oh yeah, my natural state is to be healthy. Okay, so you spend some time there. And then even if you go out of it and you go back to your regular ways, if you can remember it, right? You can remember going back to that space, then you can gradually kind of get back there. Sometimes it happens a lot faster, but it's just, that's all they're doing is holding a container for you to feel safe and comfortable and feel like you can essentially flow whatever you need to flow. And what happens as a healer, I know that when the people come to me for healing, and I know this happens with all healers, especially those who are really effective, is that they see the person as whole. The person comes and says, I have this ailment, I'm miserable. Okay. But as the healer, we say, okay, this person has a temporary ailment. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on to, again, put that container around it.
That release and relief.
Yeah. So, but that's the projection, is that you are complete and you are whole and you are healthy and you are happy, or whatever it is we're doing. But that's essentially so that's projection too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been good.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly. Well, no, it definitely is for good. And I didn't realize that, I mean, I think I kind of knew it when I was young, but didn't really fully understand it. So I don't know. Of course, the first thing I think of is all the, I think there's about 5 people in my life who I've really, 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 really disliked and just hated every part of the experience, and think, oh, well, I must have been lazy with my thoughts about that, And I did recognize that the more of those negative thoughts I had about or around that person, the worse it got. Right. But I just learned to, yeah,
Yeah.
I just learned to step away and get myself, like, I knew the last time this happened, I didn't know why it was getting worse, because I was trying to use the logical brain about the physical experience. But since I learned this, I started thinking about what I've thought about other people. And since there's only 5 of them in my 47 years, I can remember, right? Like, I can remember, oh, I know I had some really negative thoughts about this person. And I can remember actually being with one of these people, and we were having an intense conversation. It was like this conflict, right? Like, this is probably why I really didn't like the person. And I remember thinking these thoughts, but I didn't say anything, right? I just said what was logical in response to the conversation. I didn't actually say anything negative to the person, but the person responded like I had said really negative things, So, I mean, that's perfect example.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great example of that. It was interesting because those were some of the things that came in today with this garden thing that I had talked to her about, that had happened to me in the biofeedback, where I took the chicken coop poop and put it into that soil. And I know that when I would finish massage, or anytime I finish Reiki, I brush myself and send it to the earth to be transformed and regenerated, because then good things come out of crap.
Right. And then the processing before you even do that is just, I don't know, it just seems like that's the pervading thing that I keep seeing over and over recently, is like, you do have to do that. You do have to do your protection. But
Yes.
the part that we oftentimes get stuck on is the processing of whatever it is. So the feeling of the emotion, right?
Very much so.
Because
I
if
know
you
that
feel it, it doesn't go through.
excuse me. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just said, if you don't process that, it doesn't go through. If you don't allow it to be, right? The energy doesn't continue to flow. You're stopping it.
Yeah. And then it gets kind of icky. Yeah. But he talks about, I lost it. I'm sorry. It's about the energy. It'll come back. That's all right. I do have a question for you. What is QHHT? I've read it. I know I believe
QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. It's a method that Dolores Cannon developed. She's since passed. I think she died in 2014. And she started developing, she was doing hypnosis before hypnosis was popular at all. So like in the 60s. And she had some really amazing, not only results, but like experiences. She's written a ton of books, and her daughter helped her to create, essentially, to teach this to other people. And so that was the first hypnosis method that I got
what's
trained.
her name?
Dolores Cannon.
Cannon, like shooting a cannon?
Yes. I don't remember how many N's are in that, but there's 3 in her name. Yeah.
What was it again? Quantum
Healing Hypnosis Technique.
Okay. Because I have a person that contacted me and he had made mention of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew about it, but I don't know it.
Well, I
There's
think
things I don't know.
yeah, I think there's hypnosis that you can learn. I don't know if you learn it from medical school or something, but like there's a clinical
Yeah.
hypnosis, right? So that's going to have a Western mindset. It's going to be based in psychology, blah, blah, blah. Then you've got in the mainstream, you're going to have, kind of like spectacles. Well, where you'll see somebody hypnotize a whole group. And of course, it's on film, right? And then they make them do silly stuff like, cluck like a chicken or whatever. So there's some negative connotation with the clucking like a chicken. Like that's pretty much what most people, the average person will say. Oh, if I say I'm a hypnotist and they say, oh, you're not going to do that to me, are you? Like you're not going to make me, quack like a duck or whatever. And, so there's some negative connotation there. There's also, I think, some practices in hypnosis maybe give some suggestions while you're under, which can be done. It absolutely can be done, but that's at like the polar opposite of what QHHT and the other method that I'm trained in, which is beyond quantum healing, actually. In that all the information that comes through when you're doing those methods really comes from the person on the table. It's not like there's any suggestion. I can't say that I haven't been in even this method of hypnosis and haven't had some people kind of suggest some things or felt like it was maybe a suggestion, but I don't actually think that was it. I'm really pretty diligent about not doing anything there, but it is supposed to go, Dolores said that it was deeper than what you would call clinical hypnosis.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered about it because I'll do some research on it.
Oh, she's fun. You should watch her stuff.
Yeah, I will. I will. Only because I'll be talking with this young man again, and
Oh,
he's a newbie, and he's
I
and
did.
he's way out there, and he's never been there, and so he's kind of like probably off the charts with the people around him who've always known him.
Uh,
So
so he's had a big shift.
ooh,
Yeah.
huge, huge.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was tickled he wanted to meet me because I would definitely liked him. He's a nice young man, very young, and very good. Yeah, just a good person.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll talk about it in the future when I know a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay.
Because I don't know what else he knows, but he's doing a form of he's just changed to a form of biofeedback called
Uh-huh.
RIFE, RIFE.
Okay.
And so I looked that up and he's starting into that direction. So
Okay.
that'd be interesting to see
Yeah, I
where he
love all these new methods. It's really interesting because it's just like this constant back and forth between the physical body and the energetic body and the spiritual body. It's like all of these things we're all kind of balancing back and forth. And what I find really fun about it is that the physical body is it's kind of like the foundation in the sense that, well, I even voiced it earlier this week. I said, I don't really care that much about all. I can see the other shifts and it's interesting and I like it, but I don't get really uptight about like, okay, this thing needs to be fixed because I don't really judge those shifts, right? But when it comes to my physical body, I'm like, oh, this gotta stop, you know? And then I follow through like, oh no, that's not gonna keep happening. So it's time to listen when it comes to your physical body.
yeah, yeah, and we have to listen. Because for one thing, it's on a time
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
It's the only part of us that's on a time, either in time or out of time or whatever, but it's limited and it knows it.
Yeah.
It knows our bodies are amazing on what they know, and we don't even pay any attention. But they know, and it's like they will keep going their way until they're either made to change or we change.
Mhm.
And it's real clear when they're in charge because it isn't usually going so good.
Yeah, no, and it's yeah, it can be really, really loud. And actually today, another thing, one of my teachers, I've been in this class before, so I'm retaking it, but she introduced that.
Amazing to me.
Huh?
You're amazing to me. The classes you take.
Well, I
The
just want to keep learning. I want to get better.
are better. You already are in the better. I
Yeah.
think it's awesome.
She was talking about Qigong, I don't know what you call it, a move or whatever. It's like this pattern of stuff that they do in Qigong.
Yeah.
And essentially is to build up your chi, but it also kind of sheds anything out of your life energetically that you don't want or like isn't aligned with you essentially. And so she's telling these, I'm sure, I don't think she embellishes them, but they are dramatic stories to say, okay, I did this for 30 days for an hour every day. And this major thing happened to me. And there was this other person who had this introduced by the same person and they did the same thing. And her whole life turned upside down. So last year when I heard this, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Like I just got some good things going in my life. I don't want to shed anything. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But we over time we had actually added that to our little group practice, but we eventually kind of kicked that particular move out. But um,
Hmm.
it brought to mind it's actually, I think the post is about 10 years old on YouTube, and Greg Braden introduces this and he shows this video. So this is a video of Greg Braden who is then showing a video. So the video is really not very good quality. And I'm not sure what year it was, but um, there's a place somewhere in Asia, I don't remember where, but somewhere in Asia, they do this Qigong, like medical stuff. And they had 3 people doing Qigong medical. I don't know exactly what that means. I think they were chanting. Okay. And they have an ultrasound on this woman and she's got a tumor. So they take a picture like they do, like even when, you're doing pictures of a baby with ultrasound or whatever part of your body, they take a picture and it's still, and then right next to it, then they had like the live shot. Okay. And they start the Qigong and you literally watch this tumor disappear.
I don't know what that medical thing that
Yeah.
they can do with that, but I watched one where this practitioner could wind up his arms and he'd go around and around really fast. And this guy is laying on a table, and then you see an arm go up all of a sudden, and then an arm go, and then a leg, and then at a certain point it's all done. And he gets off and he's fine. I don't know what kind of
Something
an
wrong with him to begin with?
there must have been. I mean, because it was a medical thing,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that arm went around as fast as it could go. And I thought they created an energy of some kind,
Yeah.
create an effect in the body of that person on the table. And they probably stood back 8 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
don't think
there,
you have to be near.
no,
Yeah.
but it was, I mean, I think there was a lineup of people that were coming for that, but I just assumed it created some kind of an adjustment for that man that was laying on the table.
Well,
But
I've heard
wow.
of things like that before. I think I've actually seen another one, or if I didn't see it, I watched somebody who was there firsthand. Like John of God. It was funny. This actually came up. Do you know who John of God is or
I
was?
heard one of God because Becky in Hamilton had some of that information.
Okay. So he was well, I think they call this spiritual surgery kind of thing. I'm sure there's other terms, but I've heard it called spiritual surgery. I actually know somebody who actually watched her father have that done by her spiritual. That's actually Janelle. It's the leader of our group. So her spiritual leader knew how to do this stuff, and her father had a lump or something on his back. They took him in, and he did it spiritually. So and she watched it disappear. So, anyways, what was I going to say? Oh, so John of God was somebody who would do this kind of thing, and he would do it remotely. And probably the most famous, I'm assuming, I haven't researched John of God a ton, but I would assume that the most famous connection that he had was Wayne Dyer. He did this on Wayne Dyer. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer had some kind of tumor or something. I don't remember what it was. He had some kind of sickness, and so he contacted John of God, and I think they might have done it twice, but they definitely did a session, and of course it was great. And Wayne Dyer's like, "Oh, this is amazing." They are sharing all about it. And then later I looked him up, and apparently he had kind of felt like a celebrity in the sense that, like, a celebrity has whatever they've got going on, and then something happens and they're human and they have a human experience, and then everybody points their fingers and shames and all that. Yeah, I think it was something like that. So I don't remember exactly what. I think he's since passed.
We're
But
so human.
huh?
We're so human.
Yeah, right, right. Um, and one of my other mentors was actually, she just mentioned him. She said that's what happened with John of God, or she thinks. I don't know truth or not. We were talking about doing the personal work, doing the inner work to continue growing. And she was just saying that's really what happened to him, is he didn't have somebody or have people with him, or he wasn't working on that shadow side. He wasn't doing that stuff. So even though he was at a hugely higher vibration and able to do this work, because he wasn't attending to his own issues, then he kind of falls into that celebrity kind of experience that I was talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good thing for all of us to know.
Yeah.
Not to judge him, but to take a look at our own lives.
Send inquiries, suggestions for new discussion topics, and comments to podcast@happylioncenter.com. That's podcast@happylioncenter.com. If you found this content enjoyable or helpful, please comment, like, share, and download. Donations are appreciated and help us to produce more of similar content. Consider making a contribution at the links in the description box. Your support is greatly appreciated. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Happy Lion Center, and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. None of the content provided should be considered a substitute for legal, financial, medical, psychiatric advice, or as care from a certified professional.